Monster Hunter RNG is the topic of today's video. As you might be aware, this is a topic that I'm particularly passionate about. Whenever the team introduces a new RNG system into the game, I tend to try and analyze it to the best of my ability and report back with my feedback on said system, because I fundamentally believe that Monster Hunter is a game that is much more enjoyable when things are a little bit more on the deterministic side. This is not to say that there's no room for RNG. At the end of the day, you getting materials from a monster is essentially RNG. There's a certain amount of percentages. There are things that you can influence that RNG with, which is where the sense of satisfaction kind of comes from, because certain monsters you will be easier to get a certain, gem or a mantle or whatever piece you are trying to get. You might be able to influence it by capturing the monster, by breaking the monster's head. If you are trying to score a tail, you might be able to influence your chances of getting said tail by chopping the tail and carving it. There are a number of things that you can use in order to influence the end result of a hunt to try and secure certain rewards for yourself. That is not to say that these don't end up being RNG. They most definitely are. But there's a degree of influence that you can have there, and this, I feel, is when RNG is at its finest. Now, it is important to mention, before we get into the meat of this particular video, that I'm not trying to necessarily change your mind. I am trying to express my own views on it, and in this case, express your views on it, because this was a poll that I did for the Monster Hunter community that watches my videos. And I will be talking about some of the things that I read in the comment section of that poll, the results of the poll, and all of that, but fundamentally to generate discourse, for us to have an interesting conversation. Because even though last time I put out this disclaimer, I'm really not trying to change people's opinions sometimes. I'm just trying to, hey, here's what the community thinks, here's what I think, and let's talk about it. That's kind of like the point, because I feel like sometimes videos like this can provide the developers with useful feedback that they can potentially implement in future videos. But anyway, that is neither here nor there. Let's get started, and please just try to not get offended whenever I say something, because I was a little bit disappointed with the fact that last time we went through this about the curious armor crafting system, people were mad at me for expressing my opinion. It's a little bit weird. So let's get through this. So I made a poll. This was like a month and change ago. I don't remember exactly when it was, because I wanted to make a video about this, but then the curious armor crafting system came out, and I wanted to make a video about that, so I ended up delaying this a little bit. But that poll was basically the RNG situation of charms versus decorations. What does the community prefer? Do they prefer randomly generated charms or randomly generated decorations? Now, for those of you that didn't play Monster Hunter World, this might be something where you're a little bit confused, because if you've just been playing on the Nintendo platform, then you'll be aware that it's always been RNG charms. What the hell are you talking about? Decorations have always been craftable. Well, in Monster Hunter World, decorations were actually not craftable. Decorations were obtainable. There were also some decorations that they allowed you to craft as the game kind of moved on, but they were like basic decorations. You couldn't craft something like, say, critical boost, or were you able to craft weakness exploit? I don't think so. I think it was mostly utility skills and stuff like that. The rest you would have to acquire by doing temperate investigations and other quests that gave you rewards and stuff like that. Now, while the results of this poll I personally thought was going to be predictable, and at the end of the day it was kind of predictable, the discussion around the poll itself I actually found interesting, because ultimately the conclusion that I've personally reached is that no system is perfect. And even the people who choose, either they choose decorations or they choose charms, everybody pointed out different flaws within both of the systems. Both of these systems end up having significant downsides as well as significant upsides. And this is not just from the point of achieving your goals, as in oh, what is best for me to achieve the build that I actually want to have? Is it this system or that system? Because a big portion of the discussion wasn't even about that. It was actually about the way in which you appreciate the rewards that the game provides to you, which I personally thought was really interesting. So before we get further into the discussion, here are the results of the poll, which as of the recording of this video is sitting at 78% in favor of randomly generated charms, so the system we currently have in Monster Hunter Rise, and only 22% in favor of randomly generated decorations. Now, this is the predictable outcome that I would have expected. and a majority of comments were naturally in favor of randomly generated charms. And most of the arguments here are that one gear slot of RNG is going to be much better than the many decoration slots that you're going to need to fill, and those being associated with RNG. Now, I can give you specific examples, just like a lot of people quoted specific examples in the comment section, but I can tell you my own experience. Magazine decoration during the base game of Monster Hunter World, magazine decorations became easier to obtain once you got into Iceborne, but before the Iceborne expansion hit, magazine decorations might as well not even be in the game for me. It took like multiple hundreds of hours before I got my first magazine decoration. And this is with me heavily grinding the game. Like, for those of you that are looking for a time, I had clocked in over 1,600 hours before the Iceborne expansion hit, because I was actually checking the time that I was playing the game because I was really enjoying it. And it was very surprising. I mean, damn, 1,600 hours. Holy crap. And even still, with the frequency at which I was playing the game and grinding out decorations and all of this, the magazine decoration continuously evaded me. Another decoration that was very hard for me to get was artillery decos. And those aren't even that rare. I was just very unlucky within the first couple of hours that I was playing the game that they just didn't drop all that much. In the case of the PC game, which I also did a separate save file for Monster Hunter World on PC, I still don't have a guard up deco. At least I don't remember ever having a guard up deco, which was really weird when you think about it. It's like, Jesus, guard up deco, not even that big a deal. I remember talking to Tuna in one of his streams from Jinjix and Tuna, and he was telling me, dude, I have like 5. I was like, dude, I got nothing. I got literally nothing. What is going on? So that is one of the big problems whenever you are talking about RNG decorations. It's just like very hard for some people to get specific decorations. And that's without me even going into the rare decorations like attack up decos and other decorations like that. As a matter of fact, if we go up to Iceborne, another decoration that I've almost never seen, like there's one they give you throughout the game, was the Critical Eye 4 deco, which they gave you one for free as you were just like playing through the game. And then they gave you another one for free during a certain event, which I missed out on. It was hilarious. That I even made a video the day before the deco went live reminding everybody to go get it, and then I myself went and get it and forgot to save before I clicked off the game. Anyway, that's a different topic altogether. But yeah, so that was like the downside of decorations. But now let's talk about the upside of decorations, because there are certain upsides. Now, if you're talking about just goal-oriented gaming, where your goal is, no, I want to make my build, I want to get it done, then I think that straight up from a statistical standpoint, RNG charms are always going to win, because like most people pointed out, and I myself will point out, it is one slot versus the many slots that you have to fill when it comes to decorations. So this is just like from a statistical standpoint. However, what most people pointed out is that the reward structure of Monster Hunter World was much more interesting, because you would go do tempered investigations, and then at the end of the tempered investigation, in the reward screen itself, you would get to see the decorations. Now, naturally, when you get to a system like this, some people are going to be lucky and some people are going to be unlucky, and therefore there's going to be an inherent bias there. I would assume that a majority of the people that voted in favor of decorations most likely were luckier with the decoration system, which in a way is, you know, if you're a little bit lucky, that means it's actually more beneficial to you, because then you can go and craft whatever charm you want with whatever skills you want, and then you can just slot in all of these juicy decorations that you got. So I can fundamentally understand it, but not just that. It's even about, I feel like, the psychological effect of you just straight up doing a quest and being rewarded at the end of the quest. Another thing that a lot of people pointed out is the fact that, okay, so there are problems with acquiring decorations. Yes, you are correct. But there are also special events that enable you to get rewarded with additional decorations. Some of you might not remember these. We're talking about the Greatest Jagras special event, where he would actually just like barf out stuff and then you'd be able to pick up decorations. I even had this wild theory that if Greatest Jagras would actually eat a player and then barf out the decos, like if he actually killed the player while he was eating him and then barfed out the decos would be more valuable. I mean, this is obviously like conspiracy theory, friggin' what do you call it, the metal hat, the people, tinfoil hat, right? All of this stuff. But it was interesting that one time that I was eaten, Like everybody else on that quest got like majorly friggin' top-notch decorations whenever that happened. But anyways, yeah, there was the Greatest Jagras. There was one with My Name is Lavazioth, I believe was the name of the quest, because he was like the least hunted monster. So they made these quests of the most hunted monster as well as the least hunted monster, and these rewarded players with tons and tons of decorations, which was definitely more interesting than melding, which leads me to one of the major reasons why a lot of people do not appreciate RNG decorations as an RNG charms as they are implemented in Monster Hunter Rise. It's actually because melding, as much as it is a very efficient form of utilizing your resources, because you end up using these materials that you traditionally, at least I personally traditionally in most Monster Hunter games, it's like you use the materials that you get to craft the sets that you want and the weapons that you want, and you get all that stuff done, and then the rest of the materials just end up sitting in my box because I very rarely, if ever, sell materials, just because I guess I'm a hoarder by nature. But melding is efficient in the fact that it gives you something for those materials in the form of the charm stuff. But fundamentally, it is a boring system, like particularly when you're in a co-op multiplayer video game. It is very boring whenever it comes to the point where somebody receives their 10 charms and they have to go and check which charms are good, which charms are bad, and then they go and they put a bunch of more charms in, and yeah, you meld the additional charms, and then you meld additional materials. It's just boring and kind of breaks the flow of the multiplayer aspect of the game when you're playing with your friends. Kind of like somebody says, it's charm time, and somebody goes in and starts doing the melding process and blah, 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 and it gets boring. So I do agree with that. I feel like the reward structure in Rise could definitely use some more improvements in the form of us potentially getting those charms at the end of quests. And I understand that in the past I've said, hey, but you can do any quest, and then you can put the melding stuff into the melding pot. But over time, my mind has changed slightly. I mean, it's not changed, it's just I've grown bored of the reward structure of melding charms, because it is so incredibly random that most of the time you just end up not really getting that many good charms anyway. I do still prefer random charms over random decorations, but I think the important thing in this video is to recognize that there was something there, particularly when it came to the reward structure of decorations, if you're actually seeing them at the end of the quest, which is something that I've seen mentioned multiple times back in base Rise, of people saying, can we just receive these at the end of the quest, would be way cooler. Now, obviously, people would potentially, optimize to the nth degree when it comes to this stuff and figure out, oh, this quest drops more charms than that quest, so we're going to do this quest nonstop, which people did during base Rise as well, where everybody was hunting Narwa because Narwa's materials were more valuable and enabled people to meld more charms. But fundamentally, I just feel like while melding is cool to have, it should be a more optional system and not as mandatory as it is, because I do feel a significant amount of friction from the player base when it comes to engaging with the melding system. And I know that some people are going to agree with that, some people are going to disagree with that, but the important part of this is that there is value, and I do mean this, there is a lot of value in the argument that people bring in favor of decorations because of the reward structure. Right? That is one of the most important things. And some people just prefer the chase as well. It's also important to bring that up. Some people straight up wrote in the comment section, no, I just preferred the chase of decorations. And, I respect that. If that's the thing that you like, then go for it. Have at it. But me personally, I prefer being able to actually finish my builds. And obviously, charms are a much better way of doing that. But again, the biggest conclusion that I would have for this video would be the reward structure needs to be improved in the next Monster Hunter game. Most players do not want to spend copious amount of times engaging with the melding system, because that is not fun. It is fundamentally not fun to have to manage your inventory, not to mention if you take into consideration the way that some of these save file glitches have been reported on the Switch, because there's people whose save files are getting corrupted on the Switch due to the fact that the save files are getting too big. Could it be that, people are generating a ridiculous amount of charms and then not melding them back into the melder because it's boring trying to figure out which charm is good, so people just like pump more materials in there and end up creating like a super huge save file that could potentially crash your Switch. See, this is another situation where I kind of feel like the team is shooting themselves in the foot a little bit, because they recently came out talking about how the growing size of Switch save files was becoming problematic. But anyway, that's just my opinion when it comes to that stuff. On the topic of the Switch save files, I could be a little bit wrong there, because I don't know how much it affects the save file to have like 1,000,000 charms versus having 10. But, that's just my thoughts. I'd like to hear from you guys a little bit more about this topic. But, even though a majority of people clearly prefer the random charms, it's not as cut and dry as that. And there is significant room for discussion in terms of how rewards get assigned to you in Monster Hunter. Thank you very much for watching. If you enjoyed this video, subscribe, hit the bell notification icon, and hit the like button, because it helps me out more than you can possibly imagine. Algorithm has not been kind to us. And I'll see you guys in the next one. Stay strong, stay safe. Peace out.